Okay, let's kick off. So in the last video, we created a very simple Alfred app where we have a sort of a start for a Dart, any sort of Dart console, and then we come down here and we created this server. But this is going to get messy pretty quickly. So I guess the main way I structure the Alfred apps until they get really out of hand is we move all of this logic off into its own areas. So typically you'd have something like you'd have a user sort of set of routes. You might have, then you'll end up with some other sort of business logic that you want to have, any other sort of objects or whatever. So one thing we will do is, I guess we probably would have, maybe even let's create a different folder over here called routes, which I probably do normally do. So create that, go new, and then we'll create a new file and we'll call users. Route. Dot. Cool. Alright, so from there, then we'll create a class, users route, and then we'll have a bunch of, usually I use static methods. So we go static, and we'll go something like current user. There, and current user, so you always need a HTTP request, and HTTP response. Awesome. Then you might have something like login, and you might have something like, what are we going to do? We're going to create account, something like that. Okay, so then we jump back over here. And then we can keep a hello world example. That's fine. So then we go app.get, which will be the current user one. So we go /users/current user. And then it's as simple as going users route dot current user. And we don't even want like that. Cool. And so here you can start making your index of all of the different routes. There has been a proposal to even just create a different class, which I have done a sort of a demo of in the past. HTTP, let's put res in there. So and it's totally possible. You can do something where you just loop over all of the different routes, pass in a class, or generate the routes in here. So for example, you could say register, something like register. And then inside register, we can have, so we can have like what are we going to do? We'll do here, we'll do current user. So we'll return, say a map, and we'll go /users/current user, and we can just do current user. Like that. And you can just loop over and then create over here. You can just go, pass in users route, knowing it's a type of a route. We have this register function, which is probably overridden. Anyway, we can get really deep into this, but to start with, and for most people coming to this, unless you're going to get really into Dart, and sort of get pretty deep about inheritance and all the other objects and things, this is a really simple way just to get going. And this will scale a fair bit for almost, most medium-sized projects. If you're really building something massive and enterprise, then you're probably going to want to structure it probably a bit differently. But at the point where it's not going to give you any performance problems, it'll just be like, well, how big does this file get when you have a list of routes? So off we go. Cool, so we've got current user, we've got login, we have, what was the other one, and create account. So just like that, login, and create account. Cool, okay, so the other thing you're going to notice is you probably don't want to use a get, you want to do a post for a login, and for creating an account would be a similar sort of thing. Alfred also has you can also do a use. App dot, what do we got? Not use, get, close, all, app dot all, which will allow it'll listen on get, post, put, delete, all of them, and it will still just pass it straight through to this one area. But it's best practice to just Keep it simple. You've got post, it goes to there, and then off you go. Cool, so we can do current user. So in this case, we would say return. Oh, okay. I mean, that's the other thing too. If you're starting to work with classes and things, you're probably going to want to do JSON serialization. Let's, I think if you're going to want to do JSON serialization, let's have a look at something else before we get it. Hang on a second, I'll pause this. Okay, so, yeah, we're going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit of some JSON serialization because it does have a cool feature from Alfred, and I guess it really makes this starting to be useful for the users. Okay, so what we go over here, we've got our users route. Let's say we want to get the current user, which is typically my account. This is the way I structure it. There is no reason it has to be structured this way, but, you know, so what I'll typically do is I'll have a login. That'll return a JSON web token or some other sort of token or a cookie or whatever you want to do. Anyway, after you log in, I typically don't send all of the details to the user in this response. I'll get them to say, hey, you can get the current user. This one here is also then you know, lockdown as well. So even if you can hit this as many times as you like, it's not part of a whole login process. You know, and this will be the thing that usually bumps someone out in my applications because they've tried to do this. It says, hey, you're not logged in anymore, so out you go. Okay, so what we do if we're going to have a user class, we come over here. Let's create a user class, make it a user. Cool. And from there, like, let's say the user's got different properties, right? So we're going to have a string. So we're going to have first name, string, last name. We're going to do a string, we'll have email. I've been using Firebase Authentication for a long while now, but I suppose you'd probably want to use something like bcrypt, and in a case where you might want to have something where you have the password would go in here. So I guess we could do something string like, what would we do? We go hashed password, not just password, because it's always going to be hashed, isn't it? Cool. First name, last name, email, password. What else do we need? Look, that's about it for a user. Of course, that email can be their username. So we don't want them to be late. We don't want them to be final. We do want them to be user. Come on, user. I like to do everything optional with the leading, so that I can actually specify what I'm putting in instead of getting lost. Cool. And these are going to be all required. Now we'll give everything's defaults. We might have a required email. We definitely don't require a password. And the password, what are we going to do? You probably want that to be nullable. So password. And then if we actually set the password, actually, you know what? We want to never specify the password. So we want to have a set password function, I reckon. Sorry. At least I guess you're seeing how my thought process is. All right, so we probably want a set password function, I think. That way we can do some extra checks or whatever we want to do for it. You know, and then we're going to string password or something like that. And then, yeah, encrypt. We don't want to set there. What are we going to do? We are going to make it. It's not nullable. Every user needs to have a password. I guess it is nullable. Okay, cool. So, you know, we're going to encrypt the password. We're going to go this. This password equals encrypted password. So okay, we might come back to this at some point and actually build out like the authentication from start to finish in another video, but for the moment, like, that's the idea of a user. So the thing is, you've got this user, but you can't convert it to JSON very easily. So what I've done is over here, I have added JSON annotation. We've got build runner and we've got JSON serializable. This is a whole can of worms. I don't want to teach you how to do JSON serialization. Just want you to know that that Alfred's compatible with the JSON serialization library, and it makes life really easy to work with. So we've got this, and what I do is I have a little snippet that I add, that I've created here, in Android Studio, which basically I just type serializable, and it goes and generates this snippet for me. I can then grab this, as long as the name's the same, that should just slot in, and we delete you, and there we go. So now what we've got is we now have, all this is doing, if you haven't played around with it before, is it's creating a from JSON method, a to JSON method, and this little guy down the bottom is something that I do when I do my database stuff. So we can get to that at another time. You don't need to worry about him right now, but it allows me to do some cool stuff when I have my little database extension on my class. Cool, so that's that. What we need to do is we need to run the build runner. Hang on a second. Nope. I guess we can just have that one, and we will pause it. Okay, so we're back. I just needed to go and look for the command that I typically use, so I will create a new file here called build runner.sh. I'll post that in, so run build runner. Anyway, I said all of this I'm going to put up on Git, and you'll be able to like find all of these files and how it all clicks together, and off we go. Cool, so we save that. Now, what we do when we do the build runner, that's going to generate, it's going to generate our little partial class bit from the user, which will handle all of the JSON serialization. So this will go away in a sec, that'll go away in a sec, waiting. Still going. Cool, all right, let's generate it. Now we should have a new file over here, which basically converts things to JSON for us. So that's all cool. Now, the bit that's really awesome is if we've got the current user over here. Hang on a sec. Oh, sorry guys, yeah, the joys of running a distillery. Okay, so where was I? So basically we've got a class over here now, which is serializable. And it's, we can do all of this cool stuff. Again, like I said, just go and look into it yourself if you want to have a look at it. But one of the cool things is if we have a user class now, so user, not user root. Cool, there he is. He needs to have an email, so we go test@email.com. I'm sure, if you won't email.com, you'll get a lot of tests, I reckon. Say first name, we'll go test user, and last name will be, right? Cool. Now, if we get that, you don't have to create it to its own variable, but you can just return user, straight up. And that will work. Oh, sorry, user. I think, is it to JSON? No, I think we can just return user. Oh, it's been a while since I've actually played around with it like that. And usually you're doing something to things, right? Anyway, let's give this a crack. So what have we got? We've got main over here, which is going to start the server, which then goes over to here, which registers this route. All right, look, we don't need it anymore. Let's just delete it. Who needs hello world? All right. So we've got a get on user's current user, which will return a user's object. We haven't done anything about posting to these other routes yet, but let's just have a go and see if this works for us. Cool. So we run it. Yeah, we don't want to. Don't tell me. I'll just do it. Package JSON annotation. Can it run with null safety? Hey, what? Ha! Let's get rid of these. It's from an old project I copied them over from. There we go. There we go. Nice. Obviously, you want to lock in your dependency variables at some point. Upgrade. I think upgrade this latest version. Is it? No, major versions. Sweet. Yeah, let's have another crack. Cool. It's listening. So we're going to go to current user. Users / current user. And there you go. So it's converted our Dart object into JSON and just returned it. We didn't have to do anything. Obviously, password's null. I mean, it's probably like the one that you really want to do some filtering around, and we can do some stuff. But yeah, anyway, look, that's how you can do some routing. So, you know, it's a lot cleaner if you handle it this way. You keep your users off, you know, all your classes off in one area. You have your routes over here. I will often have business logic separated even out from these routes. So there might even be, you know, particularly, I guess, in services or something like that. But outside of this, I might even have like something that says, you know, register user, just a function, you know, and it's not part of this, and this will just pass, effectively take in the request or all the data, filter it, clean it, send it off to that function, it then talks to the database, it then comes back with a response, typically going to be some sort of a JSON derivative, and then you'll return it. So I tend to only do the HTTP work in here and even have another layer that's deeper than this. You know, which will talk to the different services and whatnot. Look, I think that's it for the routing at the moment. Yeah, I think that's all you really need to know, and that's probably the best way to get going with it. Cool. So I guess, look, in the next video, let's just do some authentication. We'll generate a JSON web token, and yeah. We'll generate a JSON web token. We might have let's do some password stuff. Why not? That way it answers everyone's questions. Cool. All right. I'll see you soon.